I mean, none of this surprises me, although I think that it's absolutely egregious, but all of this points back to that the CCP seemingly owns our FBI, owns America, so to speak. If they're able to get their way in our country, something like this where a huge worldwide threat is given to them to say, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen, and they do nothing, what else are Americans to think? But that they really aren't working for the people. They're weaponized against the people.
Absolutely. This is what we have been trying to tell the world is American is in danger. You know, it's not a threat anymore. This is imminent. This is present right now at this moment. And what happened yesterday, you know, the day before yesterday, March 15th, is the best proof of the DOJ, of your FBI, of your SEC system has been completely controlled, you know, by the CCP, remotely actually. So through those American traders that they've cultivated over the past decades in your system. Okay, so this is a reality.
So I think that it's a great idea to talk about freeing China, but I think the most pressing task in this country is to free America from the CCP's influence and infiltration. 7 days ago, the FBI sent more than 100 agents who aided the CCP enemy number one, Mr. Malskuo's New York residence, and handcuffed him. And the federal prosecutor even refused the bail for Mr. Malskuo. And he's CCP enemy number one. And so in the last couple of months, the supporters and the GTV investors have been protesting peacefully in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol Hill against the injustice by the SEC and DOJ. And so are you shocked to see that this country's federal government agencies funded by we the people, the taxpayer dollars, have been used by the CCP as a weapon against we, the Chinese dissidents, and also against American citizens?
I was astounded. I mean, I read all about it and I studied it. And Miles actually briefed the FBI and the CIA. And Miles was approached by 2 individuals from China twice. And then China was so intense on getting him back for things they were fearful that he would or already had shared with America, that they, via Interpol, issued a red notice for him, which is basically to go in and grab him. Everything here is too coincidental. It's astounding.
April 18th, 2017, the CCP got the Interpol to send a red notice going after Mr. Malskuo. And also on the same day, the CCP hired a top U.S. law firm and launched a lawsuit against Mr. Malskuo, representing the PAJ, whose chairman is Shan Weijian, the CCP's top agent and proxy in the Western society. And so far, the CCP has funded more than 70 lawsuits against Ms. Malskuo, all founded on the groundless accusation. Astoundingly, the U.S. court took those cases and have been dragging Mr. Malskuo into bankruptcy. And the DOJ also appointed a CCP proxy, Luke Despin, a senior partner of Paul Hastings, to be the trustee in Mr. Malskuo's bankruptcy cases. You put everything together, this gotta be biggest collusion of the century between the CCP and the FBI and DOJ and SEC.
I encourage everyone to read indictment from the Justice Department, because I'm a voracious reader. And when I read the indictment, it does not sound right. Subtle things like funds weren't used to buy a yacht. They were used for the maintenance of the yacht. Well, he's using it as an office.
The yacht, like years before the whole GTV got started. The yard was pre-existing years before the GTV, and he didn't even own the yard. The yard was owned by his children. And then in that 38 pages of indictment, there's no mention who is the plaintiff. There's no victim. There's no plaintiff, not even an anonymous plaintiff. So who filed this complaint? And all the so-called victims are now holding rallies and social media campaign fighting for Mr. Mao's Guo's justice and freedom. All the so-called victims of Mao's Guo, they are protesting against the SEC and DOJ and FBI.
Yeah, and they're getting all the help and all the involvement from the CCP. So people need to read the indictment and just think about the whole situation. I went into it with open eyes, and I looked at it. I'm like, all this stuff is just too coincidental. It doesn't make sense. So he needs as much help as possible. I hope he's getting the support of everyone and that they know how to support Gua Wengui.
I spent 2 different types of concentration camps. The one was, there were detainees from 17 years old to 70 years old people, and there were 250 persons. Then later, they have moved me to a different camp, it happened on October 18, 2018. They took us to a new camp, but the building that new camp, to me, it costed huge. They invested a lot. From that new camp, I can imagine that the Chinese government systematic abuse against the Uyghurs is not something that is short-term plan. It is for long-term plan. We spent 11 hours in that camp to learn brainwashing education. It includes history, law, and also we have to sing red songs. And at the end of each week, and we have to test about what we have learned. In that new camp on November 5th, 2018, they organized a group of 4 people together, and then they start to bring us to trial. In that trial, they have sentenced me for 7 years jail. If they find out that we spoke in Uyghur language, they would lock us in a separate room. They would leave us for 24 hours until 72 hours and lock us into a tiger chair. And they keep us until we say that we're never going to speak in Uyghur language. My name is Gulbahar Hatwaji. Since 2006, I lived in France. At the end of 2016, I was lured back to China to do my pension retirement process. But after I went back to China, my passport was taken, and then they sent me to both detention camps as well as concentration camps for 3 years. First, they shackled. The women's condition in the detention centers are horrible. All women are shackled, and our language of Uyghur will prohibit to speak. With the name of taking us out from the cell and to see the fresh air, but in reality, they torture us under 20 Celsius degrees, cold weather. And also they interrogate us from time to time. Each time they interrogate us, they put black hood to our head, and they shackle our feet, and they handcuff us. Then they took us to interrogation room, then let us sit in a tiger chair without moving condition, and then they start to interrogate. On 1st of April 2017, all women detainees were chained onto the bed. I was chained to the bed for 20 days. There are cameras all over the camp, every place. Our every move was monitored. And twice a year, they said they would administer a vaccination. But in reality, after this vaccination, all women's period has stopped.
Miles actually, in order to support the Tiananmen Square student movement, he sold his motorbike and gave the movement 3,600 Chinese yuan, which at that time about $500. And because of that, the Chinese Communist Party secret police started arresting him. And they actually arresting him even before the June 4th in May. So when they actually broken into his residence and tried to arrest him, they actually killed his younger brother, who at that time is just a week away from becoming 18 years old. They injured, I think, his daughter at that time. It's only 3 months as well. They at that time arrested him, put him into a detention center where he endured 22 months torture and beaten and brutally treated and starved him as well. But the worst thing is in this 22 months detention, he witnessed their executions in front of him. 60 plus prisoner of conscience was executed in front of him.
Because everything you mentioned so far, all of those events, you go back to the Olympics and there's, interviews on the streets. The students of today don't even know those events took place. They can whitewash the history. They can whitewash things. They can rewrite history. It's like it didn't happen. But you can't whitewash somebody's memory. He's a living testament to the darkness of the CCP.
And also, China initiated another policy of becoming relatives with Chinese officials. And through that policy, the many Uyghur women face abuse, rape, and humiliation on the Chinese officials at their own houses. Even one of the Chinese officials were allocated to stay at my house. And there are 5 together policy. That 5 together is eat together, cook together, learn together, sleep together, and sightseeing together. The male Chinese official, communist official, while staying in the house, for example, at my house, they're supposed to stay 1 week initially. And while staying, when I am cooking in the kitchen or doing something, that Chinese official would come just to relentlessly touch my all over the body and would say, and by showing the paper saying that, look, in that policy saying that we can cook together, do things together, and then with the excuse of praising me, how am I cooking, everything, and they try to touch me and abuse me, kind of humiliate me. While I was in the camp, there are 11 hours brainwashing lesson on daily basis. The lessons include Chinese law, history, and the Chinese language. And also we had to memorize everything. And also we have to test after learning all of them. And also we have to learn songs that praising Chinese Communist Party and the government. And again, we have to test at the end of the week. And also we have to write daily record, daily description or expression about our thoughts. And that thoughts shouldn't be genuine, and that should be just including praising the government and authority, that thank them that we will not take into prison, rather we will send to the re-education to learn. We have to be grateful for that we're not sent to prison. Before eating, we have to praise or say that we are grateful to country, we are very grateful for Chinese Communist Party, and we are grateful for Xi Jinping. And after finish eating, again, we have to praise them and thank them.
With
the excuse of so-called re-education, the Chinese government actually detained most of the innocent people. The reason for detention was simply some people just wore a headscarf or kept the Quran in the house, or they have traveled to foreign countries, or they have connection with the foreign countries. And the detained people include just retired professionals and intellectuals. March 13th, 2019, they have moved me to a little bit better conditioned detention facility. But at that facility, all I have to do was eat and rest. But that detention, I stayed under supervision or monitoring of 3 male guard and 8 female policemen. And they had to feed me well because I was lost so much weight that my weight was less than 50 kilograms. In order to, that purpose was because after I go back to France, and they have to make sure that they want to prove that the denial of that I was detained in the concentration camps and there's genocide happening in East Turkestan. For that purpose, they feed me before they send me to France. August 21st, 2019, I came to France with the help of my daughter's campaign and the French government's diplomatic involvement with the Chinese government. Before I came to France, the police the police boss told me that whatever I have witnessed in the concentration camp, I should not talk about it. If I do, they said they will retaliate against my family members back home. My relatives will pay for the consequence. After I came to France, later I wrote my experience, and my book was published January 13, 2021. After my book published, Chinese government accused me, said that I am a terrorist. Since then, I lost contact with my family. Thank you. From September till November 2017, I was moved to this 6th-floor building, which kept female prisoners. It located in Tugong, Urumqi. There is no balcony of these buildings. There are over 10,000 female prisoners were detained. All female prisoners, the hair was shaved, and they were wearing gray uniform. And the top of them, there is yellow vest. And on that vest, there is a numbers. Those prisoners are only called by numbers. Each Monday, the female prisoners were administered an unknown medicine and taken blood from them. 90% of the female prisoners are from 18 years old to 40 years old. After they take those medicines, the period will stop. Even some women who were breastfeeding the babies, the breast milk will stop after taking that medicine. The horrible thing is, when those female prisoners were taken for interrogation, they faced gang rape by the guards. And the worst thing is the guards or police use electric button to insert their private parts to rape and to torture them. And I have witnessed a 18 to 20-year-old girl's death. That girl's period didn't stop for 2 months. Because of bleeding, she passed away. I have witnessed that death of the girl. The outside the camp is no different from as well. It is like just the open prison. Outside the camp, the people will face the exactly same monitoring and sterilization. Like, for example, this is the policies that issued by the government. By these policies, many women need to forcibly insert IUDs and sterilized. Just like many other women in my homeland, at the end of May 2019, I was sterilized in Changloyan Hospital in Tianshan District in Urumqi.
There was a denial in our political system for a long time of like the level of threat and where threats came from in our world. It's like, was this ISIS, is groups in Syria, is it Russia? You know, there's all these things that the media and the government leaders would say, you know, these are the biggest threats we have in the world. President Trump, I think, kind of started bringing along like, hey, this is our threat probably lies. There's a trade deficit. We're having problems with the CCP. And it was interesting as soon as that language came in, how polarizing it was.
Yep.
And it started exposing maybe Nike and the NBA, their relationship with the CCP. So people began to realize like, wow, LeBron James, you could get him to say something bad about his children or his wife before he would ever say something bad about the CCP. You know, like they're owned. The NBA is owned by the CCP. And you're like, that's interesting because nobody here would have ever thought of that 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The world has changed in how our viewers would view the communist regime and the separation of it from the vast majority of people. It's more relevant. It would have been a non-issue a few years ago. And I would say in most people's eyes now, the infiltration of the CCP into every facet of America's life, they're controlling it, like taking this and able to manipulate it behind the scenes. You're like, why is his head bobbing? It's the CCP that's moving the object in every phase of American life now.
extensive spreadsheets based on nearly 300,000 individuals in one county, indicating an internment of between 12 and 12.5% of the entire county's ethnic adult population. Based on these data points, my current estimate of mass internment in the region is broadly between 1 and 2 million. We can now, with greater, I think, accuracy and authority, say that very likely between 1 and 2 million were detained at some point. We just don't know who's been released, who's been shifted where. We've seen this huge prison complex. Just in January this year, after the protests in Urumqi, after the fire, I've been hearing reports of a new wave of detention, at least in Urumqi and possibly in other cities.
Currently about 1 to 2 million are detained.
I would say 1 to 2 million in total have been detained. The current detention numbers are very difficult to ascertain.
From 2018, there appeared many slave factories. There are many detainees, the people who detained in the concentration camps forced to work in those slave factories. On October 2019, with the help of my Netherlands citizen daughter, I was able to escape to Netherlands. And because I'm Uzbek and I was able. However, because my husband, he's a Uyghur, because of simply he's a Uyghur, he's unable to come to Netherlands with me. From January 2020, I start to speak out about the genocide that's happening in my homeland. My witness testimonies published in Guardian, BBC, and the CNN. After these publications, Chinese government used my husband and relatives' WeChat, and they contacted me. This is a policeman from Bahoiliang in Urumqi. He used my husband and my sister's WeChat video and rang me on February 18, 2021. And he forced me to work for Chinese government, and I refused. Just one day before that, the London Uyghur Tribunal happened, which is June 4th, 2021. Again, the Chinese police used my husband's WeChat, and they reached out to me. And they used very abusive languages against me. And also, at the end, they forced me to divorce from my husband. And they tried to tell that whatever I say and all my testimonies are false. With that, they destroyed my family. Since then, I lost contact with my family members, including my husband. I'm not sure whether my husband is still alive or not. Thank you. Personally, myself, I have been to 2 slave factories. Those factories were located in Tianshan, Hongyanlo, Urumqi. And it's kind of big company. And in 2018, this factory brought many young Uyghurs from Akhto, Kashgar. I remember that incident very clearly because since my husband's Chinese is not good, he doesn't have good Chinese skills, so he needed to talk to the workers, and they had to make a contract between the factory and the workers. So I personally involved in making that contract. That contract was both in Chinese and Uyghur, so that's why I know. And another slave factory was located in Badawan. There are from 300 to 500 young girls and boys work there. I worked as a teacher for an elementary school in Urumqi for 28 years. Until today, I am unable to forget the young innocent students that I have. From the end of 2016, the children, the students in my classroom, they start to ask, teacher, why my parents are taken? Why my uncle are taken? Because there are many parents who are taken, separated from the children. And I was unable to answer that questions because it's very painful. But I had to explain them differently. I would tell them that, you know what, your parents had to learn national language. That's why they were taken. But the kids were unable, they didn't satisfy with that. They said, If they had to learn the language, why would they not learn the language, the school that we are in right now? Until today, I feel the extreme pain that I wasn't able to give them the satisfactory answer. Since then, there is children's camp start to appear. Like it's so good. It's the name called it's kindergarten or boarding school, but in reality, it was a camps for the children.
Assalamu alaikum.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Qalbunur Siddiq. I am a concentration camp witness. On March 9th, 2017, I was sent to the concentration camp, which is picture shown in Sayvar district, Urumqi, for 6 months. This is a 4-floor building. The walls are covered with razor wire. Around the building and inside the building, there are military policemen with the rifles. It looks like kind of war zone. The detained male prisoners, 90% of them are 17 years old to 40 years old male, but 10% is from 40 years old until 70 years old. In one cell, there are 30 to 40 prisoners detained, and also those detained sleeps on the cement floor. For each meal, they eat 1 Chinese bun and water, and even going for toilet, it's monitored, and they had to spend designated time. Within 6 months, none of them had any shower. Like this, the detainees chained and also shackled. The cell doors is 30 degrees kind of open, so they are unable to stand and walk out and into the cell. So they had to crawl out from the cell, and then they go to classrooms for re-education. Whether the detainees are in the classroom or outside, they will call it by the number and then taken for interrogations. The interrogation rooms are located just next to the classes, not too far. So after 30 minutes, the prisoners were taken, and then you will hear horrible screaming sound from torture, because they are tortured while interrogating. There are 4 types of torturing methods. One is electric button, electric helmet, electric glove, and a tiger chair. After the interrogation, after the torture, those prisoners are unable to come to class for weeks or months.
Now, under Beijing's security laws, Article 7 compels companies to provide data. Now, this is very clear. I don't need to read all of it. How do you convince the Congress of the United States that there can be a clean break? Why would the Chinese government sidestep their national law, including Article 7, Article 10, in terms of user data?
Congresswoman, I have seen no evidence that the Chinese government has access to that data. They have never asked us. We have not provided.
Well, you know what? I find that actually preposterous.
Look, then, I have seen no evidence of this happening. And in order to assure everybody here and all our users, our commitment is to move the data into the United States to be stored on American soil by an American company, overseen by American personnel.
Well, I'm one that doesn't believe that there is really a private sector in China. And when you look at their national law and what specifically these 2 articles, Article 7 and Article 10, are very clear. I don't believe that TikTok has, that you have said or done anything to convince us that information, the personal information of 150 million Americans, that the Chinese government is not going to give that up.
We care about our national security. We care about our economy, and we sure as heck care about our children. We sure do. And that's why you're here today, because 2/3 of all the youth in our country are on your app. They spend an average of 95 minutes on your app. And you know, research has shown that TikTok is the most addictive platform out there. And the reason for that, as we've been told, is because it has the most advanced algorithm. And the Chinese Communist Party knows this, and I don't speak for everyone, but there are those on this committee, including myself, who believe that the Chinese Communist Party is engaged in psychological warfare through TikTok to deliberately influence U.S. children. You know, you see behind me, if you look behind me, Mr. Crew, you see some of the challenges that we've seen on TikTok. You know about them. You know about the milk crate. You know about the blackout challenge. You know about the NyQuil chicken challenge, the Benadryl challenge, the dragon's breath liquid nitrogen trend, or the challenge that promotes car theft. I want to ask you, as I understand it, there's a sister app in China, Douyin. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation. Do they have these same things over there? Do they have these kind of challenges in China?
Congressman, I'm really glad you asked this question.
Do they, yes or no?
I'm not sure because...
Yeah, whoa, come on now. You're not sure?
I really am not sure.
Remember, you took the chair lady, she said you got to tell the truth, okay? Do you know whether they have these kind of challenges like this over in China? Because it's my understanding they don't.
I'm not sure because I spend my energies running TikTok.
And you don't look at any of your other competitors or look at anything similar to yours. So you don't know whether they don't have this over in China.
I did.
We have it here, but they don't have it here. And that's why I'm asking you this. Why is it that TikTok consistently fails to identify and moderate these kinds of harmful videos? Why is it? Why is it that you allow this to go on? We've already heard, God bless you, from parents who are here with us, who have lost children. I submit to you, everybody up here cares about the children of this country. Tell me why.
This is a real industry challenge, and we're working
No, it's
very
not
hard.
industry. This is TikTok. We're talking about children dying. Do you know how many children have died because of this? Do you have any idea? Can you tell me?
Congressman, again, it's heartbreaking.
Can you tell me how many children in America have died because of challenges like this?
The majority of people who use our platform use it for positive experiences.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you, tell me the number of children, of U.S. children who have died because of these challenges.
Congressman, again, the majority of people who come on our platform get a good experience.
I'm not talking about the majority of children. I want to know a number.
Dangerous challenges are not allowed on our platform. If we find them, we will remove them. We take this very seriously.
Obviously, you found one today and you removed it. We had to bring it to your attention.
Are you a Chinese company?
TikTok is a company that's now headquartered in Singapore and Los Angeles.
Okay.
We are not available in mainland China. Our users are in other countries around the world.
Okay. Is there a corporation that has any authority above TikTok?
TikTok is a subsidiary of ByteDance, which is founded by a Chinese founder. Yes.
And ByteDance is a Chinese company?
Well, ByteDance owns many businesses that operate in China.
Is it or is it not a Chinese company?
Congressman, the way we look at it, it was founded by Chinese entrepreneurs.
I'm not asking you how you look at it. Fact, is it a Chinese company or not? For example, Dell is a company, it's an American company. They have activities all over the world. Is it a Chinese company?
I frequently have these discussions with others on what is a company that is now global.
Last year, a federal judge in Pennsylvania found that Section 230 protected TikTok from being held responsible for the death of a 10-year-old girl who participated in a blackout challenge, also known as the choking challenge. TikTok actively pushes video on her feed. Unfortunately, this is one of the many devastating examples of children losing their lives because of content promoted by TikTok. Section 230 was never intended to shield companies like yours from amplifying dangerous and life-threatening content to children. Do you consider this to be a good faith moderation?
Congressman, as a father myself, when I hear about the tragic deaths of
my question
people,
is,
it's
do
heartbreaking.
you find that good faith moderation?
Well, Congressman, Section 230 is a very complex issue.
Yes or no?
We are very focused on safety.
Let me just follow up real quickly from your own testimony. When you told us and you repeated it, we'll keep safety, particularly for teenagers, a top priority for us. When you're saying you're making that following commitment, why did you have to wait till now to make that following commitment now and not having done it before when this 10-year-old lost her life?
Congressman, I'm reiterating the commitment.
Okay.
Internally, in all my priorities, which is public to my employees,
Okay,
safety has always been a priority.
This company is a picture-perfect example of why this committee in Congress needs to take action immediately to amend Section 230. Yes or no? Do any ByteDance employees in China, including engineers, currently have access to U.S. user data?
Today, all U.S. user data is stored by default in the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and access to that is controlled by American personnel.
Do any ByteDance employees in China, including engineers, currently have access to U.S. data?
Congressman, I would appreciate this. This is a complex topic. Today, all data is stored by default.
No, it's not that complex. Yes or no, do they have access to user data?
We have, after Project Texas is done, the answer is no.
It seems like America is becoming a banana republic. America is always tested time and again on if we're truly a free country. And we've always overcome that test. We've always proven that we are a country that strives for freedom, but now we're facing an existential threat.
Yeah.
Is America going to be an outpost of the CCP, or are we going to remain the last resort of liberty in this world? Can people still come to this country and, as you mentioned, not feel like they're returning to the very country that they fled?
Yeah.
So what we have to do is, everyone says, oh, we must speak up, we must continue to speak up. But now we're being censored for speaking up. Now we're being threatened into silence.
Yeah.
Just like with Mr. Guo, he is being arrested for speaking up and for criticizing the CCP. And he's being arrested by the very people who are supposed to protect this country and protect our freedoms that we spend our taxpayer dollars on to make sure we remain free, we remain a lawful country.
Yeah.
The fact that they're now in bed with the authoritarians, that doesn't raise any hope at all. So what we have to do is we really need to start investigating our Department of Justice, our federal government, demand that they show how much money they're actually getting from authoritarian regimes that are supposed to be our enemies.
Content on your platform related to illicit drugs like fentanyl, drug trafficking, and other illicit activity is pervasive and racks up hundreds of thousands of views. For example, in 2020, the Benadryl challenge resulted in the death of an American teenager. And we heard of another challenge earlier today that brought a death of a teenager. While you were at ByteDance, if you were the CFO for ByteDance, did Doohan allow related illicit drug trafficking or challenges resulting in death or injury to kids?
Congressman, I represent TikTok here today. I can tell you that TikTok does not allow illegal drugs.
Would Doohan allow, for 41 days, a threat against a member of the Chinese Communist Party to stand on their site for 41 days?
Again, I cannot speak for Douyin, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second part of what you said.
Well, we had a threat against the chairman of our committee that was on your site for 41 days. My guess is that would not be allowed in China.
That content is, if it's violative, I would look into the specifics, and if it violates our guidelines, it will be taken down on TikTok.
Yeah, it surely appears that it does. But the problem is what I'm trying to get at is you seem to be able to prevent this content in China. And particularly that we know, because we've done a research, that you can't have access to illicit drug information or others on Douyin, which is a sister company, as you say, in China. And so it absolutely, if you can prevent it on one and not the other, you obviously have the ability to stop it from moving forward. And yet you don't. Would you like to expand how one of your sister companies can prevent that and you not? I know you don't represent Douyin, but they don't allow it, but it happens on your platform. What's the difference?
First of all, the majority of the content on TikTok is fun, entertaining, informative, and very positive for our users. Like other companies that operate in this country, we have to deal with some bad actors who come and publish some content on illegal drugs, other.
The bad actors don't seem to be able to access Douyin.
The TikTok US experience should be compared to other US companies because this is a common challenge.
But your parent company has the technology to prevent it because you prevent it in China, but you can't prevent it here. What's the difference? That's why I'm asking.
Oh, Congressman, there is no technology that is perfect in doing this. We have to deal with the reality of the country that we're operating in. And here in the United States, as with other companies, we share this challenge. We are investing a lot to address the challenge, but we are, it's a shared challenge.
But you invest a lot to seem to be able to address it in China, but not here.
Again, I think the comparison has to be within the single country. We face the same set of challenges here in the U.S.
What's the difference? I'm sorry, I'm out of time, but what's the difference in China and here?
Let me give you an example, Congressman. In my home country, Singapore, there is literally almost no illegal drug content because Singapore has very strict drug laws.
A pretty easy question. Do you agree that the Chinese government has persecuted the Uyghur population?
Congressman, I'm here to describe TikTok and what we do as a platform. And as a platform, we allow our users to freely express their views on.
Earlier today, Chairman Rogers asked you, and I quote, have any moderation tools been used to remove content associated with the Uyghur genocide, yes or no? Your answer, we do not remove that kind of content. Yet, in 2019, TikTok suspended the account of Feroza Aziz, an American 17-year-old, after she put out a video about the Uyghur genocide. So your answer, sir, does not align with history. India banned the use of TikTok in their country in 2020. New Zealand has banned the installation of TikTok on devices connected to the country's parliamentary network. Canada banned the installation of TikTok on government devices. The United Kingdom has banned the TikTok app from government-owned devices. Belgium banned the TikTok from government phones. The European Union banned the installation of TikTok on government devices. All cited security risks with the company's data collection and connection to the Chinese Communist Party. Recently, our U.S. FBI Director Christopher Wray said about TikTok, quote, this is a tool that is ultimately within the control of the Chinese government, and to me, it screams out with national security concerns.
When you were asked about Chinese censorship, you pivoted immediately to drug use in Singapore. You have absolutely tied yourself in knots to avoid criticizing the CCP's treatment of the Uyghur population. If the CCP demanded that ByteDance hand over all of the data that they had on U.S. users in their possession, and ByteDance refused, I wonder what would happen. I wonder if Jack Ma might have an opinion on that, and I wonder if he'd be allowed to give it.
Very lucky to have Nicole Tsai with us. She's a member of the new federal state of China. But you've dug so deep into the Department of Justice, into the legal system, and even into the media.
Yeah.
The CCP has infiltrated all these angles. Give us a little insight on how deep they are into these places.
Oh, absolutely. One of the most recent examples is the Washington Post. They're promoting the CCP's propaganda
in the U.S. papers.
Exactly.
Wow.
And also, the CCP's infiltration is not only up in the airspace with the balloon, it's in your living room. Everybody's watching it. And the most important thing is the DOJ. And also, I think his name is Tony Podesta. He is the chief lobbyist for Huawei. Huawei is the CCP's surveillance program designed to collect
the 5G network.
Yeah, 5G network.
That owns the back ends of the computers, right?
Yeah, and if you guys want to live in the world described in 1984, then celebrate Huawei's entrance into the U.S. market. And you should be applauding for these former U.S. senators and congressmen bringing Huawei.
Recently, a European country, I don't know if it's Norway or Finland, just outlawed Huawei's back-end stuff. They're not allowed to use it.
So let's not forget, when Trump was in the White House, he issued an executive order banning TikTok. But years passed. Why TikTok is still doing business as usual? Because they are the former U.S. senators, U.S. congressmen, former congressional staff, and people with close access to the White House are lobbying on behalf of TikTok's behalf.
Has ByteDance spied on American citizens?
I don't think the spying is the right way to describe it.
Mr. Chu, you have publicly stated that the non-public information of TikTok users in the United States is being transferred to an Oracle-based cloud infrastructure because of safety concerns. Will that be completed by the end of this week, by the end of this month? What's the outline for dealing with that data that you've already amassed?
All new data is already stored by default in this Oracle cloud infrastructure with the
No, I'm talking about the data that you've already amassed.
We are in the process of deleting.
What timeline will that data be able to be stored?
I believe we'll be able to get it done this year.
To be clear, until that data transfer happens, user data remains accessible to the Chinese Communist Party. On March 1st of this year, the committee asked you when you plan to delete non-public historical U.S. user data. Are you aware of this?
Congressman, I disagree with this assessment that the Chinese government can get access to the data. This is a private company. This is what Chinese employees
You responded. You responded in writing to this committee. I have the response that we got back from you on March 7th, just 6 days later. Your attorneys wrote, the company, I'm quoting, the company plans to begin the process of deleting non-public historic U.S. user data this month and anticipates that the process will be completed this year. You came up with a supposed plan in the summer of 2022, specifically based on our concerns that the Communist Chinese government was spying on U.S. users. But you only just came up with the idea to delete historic non-public U.S. data just 2 weeks ago? Let me read it again. On March 7th, your attorneys wrote, and I quote, the company plans to begin the process of deleting non-public historical U.S. data this month and anticipates that the process will be completed this year. Mr. Chu, did you just come up with this plan only because we asked about it on March 1st?
No, we started deleting this.
Because that's what it looks like to me. Wouldn't you agree that awaiting even minutes for this personal privacy protection is absolutely wrong and it is not in the best interest of your users? Based on what we've heard today, it's clear to me that TikTok as a company cannot be trusted. I still contend that TikTok is the spy in Americans' pockets. I want to acknowledge that TikTok does have the ability to make those changes, but unfortunately, we have not heard that from you today. We have not heard a commitment to be able to protect the personal privacy that Americans expect and that Americans deserve.
What are the people in China doing to fight back on their own account? And that's something nobody ever talks about.
Great question. So the movement founded and led by Mr. Mao Guo, the new federal state for China, we have more than 600 million followers, and a lot of them are residing in communist China. So the change in China has to start from within. And our members include some of the most prominent government leaders or the officers inside the military. Remember how the former Soviet Union collapsed. It's the people from within. I mean, everything in communist China was provided by the government, including indoctrination, including concentration camp. If you want that for free, you can have it. So for all these people who are for those ideas, let's exchange. You go to communist China.
You want to go to communism? Go.
Exactly. That's called fair trade.
Mr. Chu, earlier we had submitted into evidence the TikTok, ByteDance, and their ties to the Chinese Communist Party report, paragraph out of their summary. We show in this report how the CCP and the PRC state agencies together, the party state, have extended their ties into ByteDance to the point that the company can no longer be accurately described as a private enterprise. You keep calling it a private enterprise, but all the countries in the world are saying it's not a private enterprise, it's part of the Chinese Communist Party. What say you, sir, yes or no? Is it part of the Chinese Communist Party, as everybody thinks, or are you still living in some mystical world?
I disagree with many conclusions.
So you're living in the mystical world. I yield back.
It is only TikTok that is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. All these other social media companies are not. Mr. Chu, do you agree that TikTok is controlled by the CCP?
No.
Okay, I thought you'd say that. I disagree. Here's why I disagree. Your parent company is ByteDance, right?
That's correct.
So many of the workers who work at ByteDance, they're Communist Party members, right?
I wouldn't know.
I think, for example, the chief editor at ByteDance, Zhang Vuping, is the Communist Party secretary, correct?
He works on the Chinese business, not on TikTok.
Right. He works for ByteDance, the parent
He works
company.
on the Chinese business.
Right. The parent company of TikTok.
The Chinese business is called Douyin.
Yeah, but it's all associated with ByteDance, right?
So ByteDance owns a number of businesses.
Right.
They are
You all report to ByteDance. Everybody's part of ByteDance. And do you know of any other employees that work for ByteDance that are part of the Chinese Communist Party?
Like I said, ByteDance owns Chinese businesses and they operate in China.
You don't know how many, but you acknowledge many must be card-carrying members of the CCP, right?
They're in the Chinese business, yes.
Sir, either you know who is and isn't a member of the Chinese Communist Party or you don't. Which one is it? I submit that you know, and you just aren't giving us the straight story. Clearly, you know, but you denied that.
I can ask one or two people, but we have no policy to ask all the employees. I can ask one or two people, but who are in
But it's reasonable
key
to
positions.
assume that with a significant number of members of the country, of China, being members of the Chinese Communist Party, logic would tell us, you're a logical man, I assume, logic would tell us that there are a fair number of your employees who are members of the Chinese Communist Party, at least a dozen or so, who have access to this data. Isn't that so?
Again, like I said, I can ask one or two people. We don't have a
So,
policy to ask
I
everybody.
said earlier, you're living in some kind of a cloud world, because either you know or you don't know.
Are you aware of any instances of TikTok distributing content from Chinese state media?
I'm sorry?
Are you aware of any instances of TikTok distributing content from Chinese state media on the platform?
We will label them clearly for our users to understand that.
Do you disagree with FBI Director Wray and NSA Director Nakasone when they said that the CCP could have the capability to manipulate data and send it to the United States? Do you disagree with their statement?
Their statement says could.
So do you disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so it is possible that the CCP, under the auspices of ByteDance, which is your parent company, which you get paid from, has the ability to manipulate content that is being shared with 130 million Americans, yes?
Congressman, I just want to make sure I'm understanding all these questions. I don't disagree with them that there are data risks in general. That's what I meant.
So, Mr. Chu, if the CCP tells ByteDance to turn over all data that TikTok has collected inside the U.S., even within Project Texas, do they have to do so, according to Chinese law?
Congressman, first, I'm Singaporean.
That's fine, but there are employees of yours and ByteDance's in China.
We understand this concern. In my opening statement, we said, we hear these concerns, we didn't try to avoid them or trivialize them. We built something where we take that data and put it out of reach.
But they own you. ByteDance owns TikTok. CCP owns ByteDance because the CCP owns everybody in China. And so by law, they can make them do whatever they want, and they say that by law, you can't tell anyone about it. So they can make you hand over that data. Is that correct?
Data is stored here in American soil by an American
Well,
company
you say that.
overseen by American
We thought
personnel.
that, but leaked audio from 80 internal TikTok meetings shows that U.S. user data has been repeatedly accessed from China when you said it hasn't been. In your own privacy policy, it says that you may share information within your so-called corporate group. Is ByteDance part of that corporate group?
ByteDance as a holding company is part of the corporate group, yes.
Your own privacy policy says you have to share data with ByteDance. And if the CCP says, hey, ByteDance, you're going to do what we say, and you can't tell anyone about it because by law, according to that 2017 national intelligence law, they have to do it. That's our concern. Over 300 TikTok employees have worked for China's state-run propaganda media. That's just from looking at their LinkedIn profiles.
Are there engineers located inside mainland China that work on TikTok? Not Douyin, but TikTok.
We are not the only company that has that.
Are there engineers inside mainland China currently working on the algorithm for TikTok?
Congressman, like I said,
As you told me in my office.
There are other companies that, as I told you in your office, there are
By the way, I'm going to reclaim my time. Please rename your project. Texas is not the appropriate name. We stand for freedom and transparency, and we don't want your project. You've actually done something that in the last 3 to 4 years has not happened, except for the exception of maybe Vladimir Putin. You have unified Republicans and Democrats. And if only for a day, we're actually unified because we have serious concerns. Is TikTok a platform for good?
I believe yes.
Does TikTok support freedom of speech?
Yes, it's one of the commitments I've given this committee.
Do you personally support the First Amendment?
Congressman, I'm here to talk
As the
about
CEO of TikTok?
I'm here to talk about TikTok.
As the CEO of TikTok, do you support
TikTok supports freedom
Thank
of
you.
speech.
Does TikTok support genocide?
Again, Congressman, I'm here to talk about TikTok.
Does TikTok support genocide? Does TikTok?
No. But,
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to a video now, and it's from Enes Kanter Freedom. And I'd like you to see Enes Kanter Freedom, who has spent his entire career post-MBA fighting against human rights violations within the Chinese Communist Party. Go ahead and play this video, which highlights a situation that allegedly shows some human rights violations inside China. Mr. Chu, this was a video that was posted on TikTok by Enes Kanter Freedom. Are you familiar with this basketball player?
I'm not familiar with the specifics of
Yeah.
this, but I can tell you
Are
that,
you familiar with the player Enes Kanter Freedom?
Congressman, I'm not specific. I'm not. You just have to open TikTok and just search for this kind of
Okay.
content. It really exists.
I've read the moderation policy. Let me just quote. One of the guidelines says, material that in the sole judgment of TikTok is objectionable. Is this an example? Banning Enes Kanter Freedom? Is that an example of objectionable material inside the Chinese Communist Party in mainland China?
We do not take down content simply because it's critical of
He
China.
was
We do
banned
not do
1
that.
week after this video.
We do not do that. And I can check on the
If you need a note, go ahead.
The note says he's not banned.
His account was taken off 1
Well,
week after.
We can check on the specifics.
We can check.
Yeah.
I'd point to the example of Sam Bankman-Fried. We're talking about a money laundering scheme where people were defrauded out of billions and billions of dollars through the FTX scandal. He's not in jail. He was bailable. So when you're talking about the harm to the financial community or potential investors, people where there's actual evidence, not doctored evidence, but actual evidence of people being defrauded, Sam Bankman-Fried was able to get out on a relatively benign amount. If someone could harm more than just 5,000 investors, we're talking about a worldwide money laundering scheme, and he's out in the streets. And I want to say that the court of origin was also in New York. So I'm sitting there going, all right, let's compare Sam Bankman-Fried's treatment to Miles Guo, and you're seeing an absolute disparate treatment where it's laughable to suggest that Miles Guo has caused greater harm to the community at large. And Sam Bankman-Fried wasn't even in the continental United States when the warrants were being issued for him to surrender. So, Miles Guo, like I said, the only logical place where you could see him being a flight risk would be to his home country, which is far more perilous for him than the United States. Mm-hmm. So unless you've got risk factors of violence, like drug trafficking, like physical violence, or a criminal record, you're basically looking at allegations of white-collar investment crimes that pale in comparison to Sam Bankman-Fried. And that's without even getting into the merits, whether it's true or not. But to suggest that Miles Guo can't operate with attorneys, lawyers, and have conditions of release to make sure that due process is afforded is laughable. And what's clear from this is, again, what he's dealing with is a flash mob conviction. This is all about big splashy headlines that destroy his name, his reputation, and the facts be damned. That's what he's up against. And when you've got weaponized law enforcement agencies that are going after him, there is an end goal for them, and it's to silence this man. It's not about the truth. And so if people are kind of puzzling and asking themselves, why has this happened? It's because he's dangerous. He's dangerous to the CCP. And it really is that simple.
Absolutely.
My last point is this. I want to say this to all the teenagers out there and TikTok influencers who think we're just old and out of touch and don't know what we're talking about, trying to take away your favorite app. You may not care that your data is being accessed now, but it will be one day when you do care about it. And here's the real problem. With data comes power. They can choose what you see and how you see it. They can make you believe things that are not true. They can encourage you to engage in behavior that will destroy your life. Even if it is not happening yet, it could in the future. The long-term goal of the Chinese Communist Party is the demise of the American power, and that starts with our youth. At any moment, they could demand that all of TikTok's data be used to design an AI algorithm with the sole purpose of promoting Chinese interests and destroying our society from within. You want to know why why Democrats and Republicans have come together on this? That's why we are so concerned. Thank you, and I yield back.